Your neighborhood just got cooler with Kroger Delivery's refrigerated trucks. Simply order groceries at the same great prices online as in-store, and we'll bring them to you fresh every time. And if that wasn't cool enough, you can now earn 4 times the fuel points after 4 with your digital coupon. Choose a next-day Kroger Delivery time slot for 4 p.m. or later on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Must deliver by February 4th. Restrictions apply. See Kroger.com for details.
Build a routine with Ollie that supports your wellness needs, like getting your daily vitamins and minerals with Ollie's multi-gummies, or keeping your mood upbeat with all the vitamin D in Hello Happy. Give your gut health some support with probiotics, and wake up feeling refreshed after taking Ollie Sleep. Do wellness on your terms. Find Ollie at a Walmart or Target near you or at ollie.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Banterly, the Gen Z podcast about pop culture, media, and everything in between. My name is Aidan, and we have our special guest still here in the studio, Maya Shetty. Welcome back.
Thank you. I don't want to say I'm happy to be back, but I'm very happy to be back.
It's been a minute since we've been on here. How was your holiday season?
It was good. It was quiet. I spent the time with my family. That was the goal. I knew I was going to be home for a lot of it, so it was really nice. And yeah, I missed New York, but I haven't seen you, my friend, in what feels like a month. And I know it probably hasn't been, but
I haven't seen you. Last time I saw you, I was 23. So I'm 24 now. So it's been almost a month. It'll be a month and 8 days. And I can't believe it's 2025. It feels like such a monumental, like it's a quarter. You know, it's that good whole number, 25, you know?
oh, it's a quarter. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I guess so.
Speaking of the new year, our question of the day today is, what is your 2025 New Year's resolution?
I have a few, and I'm a big resolution person. I usually make really specific ones, but this year I decided to be general because then you can't beat yourself up about it if you don't make it happen. So one of them is to get off my screens, computer, phone, TV. That kind of is like lets me go into new hobbies, but mostly like my brain's tired and my eyes are tired. I feel like it's taking away parts of my soul. I just need to be off of it. And because I spend so much time during the work week on my computer, I need to just turn off my phone at night or in the mornings, do something like that. And podcasts have really helped me this year because I like Banterly. I'll listen to it when I'm getting ready in the morning or at night. And it's not like I'm on a phone or just staring at a blue screen. So that is my big one for this year.
I'm not a super big resolution person. I can't remember if I even set any the past few years. Maybe I did, but I don't remember them. So I guess they weren't that important in my brain. But this year, I want to stop drinking coffee. It just never made me feel good. My head always hurt. My stomach hurt. It ruined my appetite. And I would always just drink it for energy. And there's other things that I can drink for energy if I need it, like matcha and tea. I don't drink caffeine in the morning, period. Like I'm not like I need to have a cup of something to get me going. So it's only for situations where I'm like, oh, like tomorrow, for example, a 6 a.m. bus, like I'm going to need to have some coffee or not even coffee, matcha. See, I got to switch my brain. I'm going to need to have some matcha when I get to New York because I will be tired. So things like that. It's not an everyday thing, but that's my big one, I think. Easy peasy. I think I'll succeed.
I think you'll succeed too. I feel like I see you a lot in general, so I'm curious to see how you will be when we go out, if you will be opting for a matcha over a coffee, which I think you will, and I believe and I support. And you also wake up really chipper. I've noticed this. You will have energy when you wake up, so you don't need coffee.
Well, no coffee, less screens. Here we go, 2025. Okay, renters, quick question. Why aren't you earning points on your rent yet? Seriously, we're out here racking up points on coffee, groceries, and random impulse buys. But rent? Life hack for you, Built lets you earn points on rent payments and redeem them toward things like flights, hotels, and a lot more. Let me break it down. There's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points toward. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/Banterly. That's joinbilt.com/Banterly. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/Banterly to start earning points today.
So we're only a few days into 2025, 15 to be exact, and it feels like a month has gone by with the amount of events that have happened that have shaken the world. I think the biggest ones being the tragedy in New Orleans.
Suspects 22-year-old Mia Lindsay and 26-year-old Mariah Campbell are accused of shooting and killing Christopher Oates Saturday on Bourbon near Toulouse. Now, Lindsay is facing one
and the fires happening in California.
It's shocking video showing the absolute devastation in the Pacific Palisades. The footage reveals mile after mile of scorched earth where beautiful homes once existed.
Also, former President Carter dying. It really feels like 2025 started off with a bang and not in a good way, in a really tragic way.
I feel like this happens every year. There's all these horrible things that happen in the first few weeks of January, but this year seems particularly grim. These fires in Los Angeles have been one of the most devastating natural disasters that I've ever witnessed in the U.S. It's just been hard to see, at least for me, with TikTok and Instagram. You see more of what happens to the average Joe who's just posting, oh my gosh, this is my house before and after, like going through the streets, versus if this were to happen 20 years ago, it would have been the news channels. But we have direct access to people who have lost everything, and I think that makes it all the more tragic.
Definitely. And I think it's starting in an area where the residents are so extremely wealthy, and they also have a level of fame and stardom that just put even more eyes on that and made even more content be shown about their houses and everything that they've lost. It's tragic. It's horrifying. I know we both have a lot of people that we know in the area who've had to evacuate and whose lives will foreseeably change for the next few months, or at least until their work and their education and their family and friends are safe and in a better place. So it's been horrifying.
Fires around Los Angeles.
Our neighbor's house is going up. We're going up. There's no water.
This homeowner is irate.
And whether you're rich or poor, losing everything that you own is devastating.
Yeah.
It's especially hard if you don't have the means to build it back up right away, but
This is a deep cut, but do you remember when our professor talked about when the symptoms of climate change heighten, you're going to see these climate refugees all over, and it's just going to become a bigger and bigger problem. And I remember reading it, and one of our former classmates who was also in that class brought it up, and something like clicked in my brain. I remember reading this, and this is the first example that I've seen impact so many people I love, where there now are 100,000 climate refugees who have to evacuate. And I don't know, that was just something that we read when we were in high school, and now we're seeing the real repercussions. And I know climate change isn't the only factor in these fires, but it's definitely one of the biggest ones. So it will also be fascinating, again, transitioning into a presidency who doesn't necessarily believe in climate change and doesn't want to give funding to a lot of the organizations that are going to treat the aftermath of these horrible events.
there's a quote circulating on social media right now that people have been posting alongside videos of the damage, and it reads, "Climate change will manifest as a series of disasters viewed through phones with footage that gets closer to where you live until you're the one filming it." That's grim. That's chills.
Oh, God.
Yeah. You never think it's you until it's you. And I've seen a lot of TikToks of people being like, I actually saw the most, oh God, I'm going to tear up. You know how I cry easily, but this old man who was in his late 80s, he was living in one of the towns affected, lost his whole house, and he was interviewed. And I guess he spent most of his adult life volunteering and trying to advocate for the homeless population in LA. And he was saying, like, I never thought that I would end up being someone who was homeless. And it was just, you never know.
You don't. I really cannot imagine having everything you own and potentially love just like taken away like that. Just in an instance, not being able to save much of anything and just being scared. It's horrible. It feels like one thing after another.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Go to Blinds.com for 40% off site-wide. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Even with all these atrocities being filmed on TikTok and spreading everywhere, it's important to put the phone down because at the end of the day, it does nobody any good to just stress themselves out over a barrage of TikTok videos. Do what you can to help them, but also do what you can to protect your own peace and your own mental health. And put the TikTok away and turn on a movie.
I agree. Do everything that you in your power can do, whether that be check in on people, donate money, donate clothes. If you're in the area, donate your time to helping people. But once you reach the place where you can't, try not to stress. Again, like Aidan said, protect your peace and do something that comforts you, that can help you not necessarily distract, but make you feel better about the world we're in. It can be very hard to feel good. But what I do is I watch movies, and a very exciting event happened recently. The Golden Globes occurred this past week, and Nikki Glaser, our St. Louis native, was the host.
Wicked, queer, night bitch. These are not just words Ben Affleck yells after he orgasms. These are some of the incredible movies nominated tonight. The Bear, The Penguin, Baby Reindeer. These are not just things found in RFK's freezer. These are TV shows nominated tonight.
Seeing Nikki Glaser be the host and absolutely knock it out of the park, it is such a hard job to do. And the past few ones have been such flops. I remember we were watching, didn't we watch it together once? And you knew who he was, but nobody else in the room did. And we were like, this guy is not funny.
Mm-hmm. Another comedian who thought that really distasteful roasts at the Golden Globes were appropriate when they were not. But Nikki is so good at roasting. I don't know if you watched her Tom Brady roast.
$30 million in crypto. Tom, how did you fall for that? I mean, even Gronk was like, me know that not real money. Like,
yeah, she killed it. She knocked it out of the park. I just have nothing but good things to say. She's hilarious. And I was nervous for her to be on the Golden Globes because it feels like an important award show to be a new host on. Because usually I feel like they pick someone kind of safe, but they picked Nikki, and I think that she did a great job.
All our little St. Louis natives were clapping from afar. But other than Nikki Glaser, there were some very memorable speeches, specifically Demi Moore's speech when she won was so powerful.
30 years ago, I had a producer tell me that I was a popcorn actress. And at that time, I made that mean that this wasn't something that I was allowed to have, that I could do movies that were successful, that made a lot of money, but that I couldn't be acknowledged. And I bought in, and I believed that. The universe told me that you're not done. And I am so grateful to Coralie for trusting me to step in and play this woman.
Definitely. It was so shocking she had never won a Golden Globe. I had no idea. Absolutely no idea. And I'm happy she won it for this role, because even when she talks about being a part of this movie and like reading the script and being with the other women, it sounds like it healed a part of her in a lot of ways. And if you watch The Substance, which is a lot about how you view yourself and the critics we can be when we look in the mirror, it's very nice to see her win such praise for a really vulnerable role that she played. I was struck. I love that movie. I think it's incredible.
And other past episodes that we've talked about, like Wicked and Hacks and The Bear and Baby Reindeer, they all took home awards, which was always great to see and well-deserved. And it seemed like it was such a fun night. I'm excited to see these Oscar nominations come out. Like, nobody's safe, except for maybe Emilia Pérez. Might be the only safe one because they swept the Golden Globes.
The light always wins over darkness. You can maybe put us in jail. You can beat us up, but you never can take away our soul, our existence, our identity. And I want to say to you, raise your voice, freedom, and say, I am who I am, not who you want. Thank you so much.
Today we're going to be talking about Emilia Pérez. It was nominated for 10 Golden Globes. It won for Best Musical Comedy, Best Original Song, Best Non-English Film, and Best Actress for Zoe Saldana.
In today's episode, we're going to be sharing our thoughts on the movie, talking about some of the criticism it's received, and then we'll kind of tell our overall feelings on whether these Golden Globe Awards they won were warranted or not.
En el mercado de las nuevas drogas. ¿Y qué le puedo ayudar, señor del Monte?
Quiero ser una mujer.
So Emilia Pérez is directed by Jacques Audiard. He's a French director. It was a French production, entirely shot in France, but the movie is set in Mexico.
And for anybody who hasn't seen it, it is a Spanish musical comedy drama that follows Rita, played by Zoe Saldana, who's a lawyer in Mexico City, who's unsatisfied with her job. And then she was hired by a notorious cartel boss in Mexico City, played by Carla Sofia Gascon, to help her with her transition from male to female and moving her family from Switzerland back to Mexico City post-transition. And her ex-wife / child's mother is Jessie, played by Selena Gomez, which is the reason I watched it, honestly. I'm sure a lot of other people too. Brought that star power. But what did you think, Maya?
I have so many mixed opinions about this movie, but I only watched it because it kind of swept, like we said, the Golden Globes. I didn't know much about it, and I watched it because afterwards I'm like, oh, it must be wonderful. It won all of these categories that feel very different and special. And then I watched it, and I was a bit confused. So like Aidan said, this movie is a drama, comedy, musical done in France, but it is a Spanish-speaking movie. And when you watch it, it actually does fit all of those categories. It's a comedy. It has music interlaced throughout the movie with the lead women singing. It felt like it didn't fit into a box, and I really appreciated that about the movie. And this was quite an original movie. Speaking of Selena Gomez, I thought she did such an amazing job.
I watched it for Selena Gomez. I thought I was unsure because personally, I don't think Selena Gomez is the best actress I've ever seen grace my screen. I think she makes wonderful music, and I've heard Rare Beauty's great, but acting, okay. And people were really making fun of her on TikTok about her Spanish.
To this movie. People are claiming that his whole problem is that she can't speak Spanish, that she's a no sabe, when never did he say anything about que esta no sabe cómo hablar español. It was very much criticizing her acting.
I watched it before the Golden Globe Awards, so I didn't know they had won. And I didn't know a lot about the director, where it was filmed, different criticisms that people brought up later when I was watching it. So I was kind of watching it with a fresh eye, other than expecting Selena Gomez to be bad. But I really liked it when I first watched it. And I thought like it was nothing I had ever seen before. I did not know anything about the story. I was surprised it was a musical. I was kind of shocked when they started to sing. I was like, what is happening? Zoe, why are you singing right now? And it's so robotic.
Cuando hablamos de violencia, hablemos de compasión.
Hablemos de nuestros muertos, hablemos de nuestras sombras, acojamos nuestros...
Singing is quite the word.
It's a big word.
It's a generous word for a lot of that.
They were speaking melodically. It wasn't a classic musical like Wicked, where each song is so different and you could picture yourself listening to it while you're driving or working out. It wasn't very musical in that way, and that's what a lot of people are complaining about, why it won Best Musical Comedy against Wicked. It reminded me of the older kind of classic musicals when it was just singing throughout the whole movie and they were just kind of talking and singing their ideas. Specifically, this movie I watched senior year of high school in my French class called Les Parapluies de Cherbourg, which is, merci beaucoup, which is a movie about these two people in love, and I think she has an umbrella shop, but there was no talking, there was no dialogue. They would just sing in the same tune throughout the whole movie what they were thinking. And it was hard to watch back then, but it kind of reminded me of, oh, this is just a different type of musical. Not that it's a bad or a good musical, but it's just different. It's not like Hamilton, where you're like, oh, this soundtrack's going to be great. I don't think anybody's going home and listening to the Emilia Pérez soundtrack.
No, my hot take is I have a hard time calling it a musical because I think the music was really bad. But I think it made sense in the moment, if that makes sense. For me, I usually, when there are musicals, not even like traditional musicals like Wicked or Hamilton, you can kind of tell when they're building up to a song, but you can feel it. But with this, it would be like we're having a conversation and then we're singing and then we're not singing. And it was really hard for me to watch at first. And I think I was trying to take it too seriously when I started watching. And after a few songs, specifically during the song where Zoe's character is shopping doctors for Emilia Pérez's sex change, there is a very now famous and viral song.
Mammoplasty, yes. Vaginoplasty, yes. Rhinoplasty, yes. Laryngoplasty, yes. Mammoplasty, yes. Vaginoplasty, yes. Rhinoplasty, yes. Laryngoplasty, yes.
That's what kind of clicked in my head, that it's supposed to be a little strange and campy and tone deaf and all of these things. That's what I realized, that this movie wasn't what I expected.
But I appreciated the musical breaks because the movie overall was so sad. I cried, I teared up, and it was just such a sad, dark, and tragic story with a very sad ending that it was kind of nice to have some musical interludes, because otherwise it would have just been like the whole time.
I didn't cry, but I know I could see moments where you would be emotional. What can you tell me about the moments when you cried?
I cried when Emilia was explaining to Rita in one of their first meetings about the feeling of like not being comfortable in their own body. And then I cried anything involving the children, really. One of the scenes that made me cry was an interaction between Selena Gomez's character Jessie and Emilia Pérez, where after Emilia had come back from her transition and her ex-wife and children moved in with her under the guise that she was their long-lost aunt from a faraway relative, so they stayed with her and moved from Switzerland, which is where they were originally sent after the transition began. And at one point, Selena Gomez has this man that she's been seeing, and she gets engaged and tells Emilia that they're moving out. And Emilia was like, where are the children going to be? And she was like, with me, obviously. And then Emilia threw her on the bed, her tone shifted.
Tú te puedes ir a chingar a tu puta madre si quieres con el pinche vato ese. Pero mis hijos se quedan aquí.
The way that she was speaking was very forceful. And it made me sad because I felt bad for Selena Gomez for being thrown around, and she's just trying to do the best for her kids and herself after she's dealt with all these tragedies. But it also made me feel sad for Emilia because these were her children that she finally was able to have another relationship with that are being taken away. I don't think her actions were justified, but it made me sad. And when she was walking away crying, and in the back you can hear Selena saying, "They're my kids, they're not your kids, you're crazy." Like, it gives me chills, and it makes me sad. So I cried.
No, that was definitely a really intense moment. And if obviously Emilia's actions were not justified, but I think you do crazy things when you think you're kids. are going to leave you, especially when you've already felt them gone before. Like, you lost them once, losing them again, like you said, it feels immeasurable.
A la que fuera tan amada durante fugaces instantes.
Like I said, I watched this movie not knowing anything about anything. Okay, except for Selena Gomez, but we knew she did a good job, so that button was checked. But a lot of people, specifically in the trans community, have been criticizing the film for its portrayal of Emilia Pérez and stereotyping and kind of moving backwards in the realm of trans rights and visibility in media. And people on TikTok felt the same.
Woman to men,
Man to woman.
from penis to vagina.
I think we need to talk about it. This movie was the critics' darling to come out of the festival circuit. It was all anybody could talk about. It had an early lead on the award show season. Then it actually came out on Netflix, and general audiences were like, what the fuck is this? I saw one reaction that was like, what was in the water at these festivals? Like, how could we all be watching the same thing? Emilia Pérez has gotten so much backlash from the Mexican community, from the LGBTQ community, that really it's enough for me to defer to their expertise that this movie was not it. First of all, there's been a lot of backlash about how disrespectful this movie is to Mexico, that it was directed by a Frenchman who basically said he didn't really need to do any research for it, and that it profits from one of the worst humanitarian crises that's happening right now in the world. It's like GLAAD who are condemning it for its really poor trans representation, calling it literally a step backwards. Spoiler alert, Emilia Pérez is a terrible person. She's a murderer, she's the head of a drug cartel, and then the movie makes it seem like because she transitioned, everything's absolved. There's also a really weird, and I have no idea how else to describe it, like a Mrs. Doubtfire plotline that is also just really offensive to trans people.
GLAAD wrote a whole article about how it's not good trans representation. What are your thoughts?
When I first watched it, the sex change operation song, that we mentioned before, it was hard for me to get through, not just because it was a bad song, but because it felt like we were making fun of something that is very serious. And I think there's a space to make like a silly song about a woman trying to help another woman find gender affirming care. There's a world in which, and there's a space where that can happen. But to me, the movie didn't really speak to the struggles, I guess, of the trans experience. And so I thought this song, by not taking it seriously, not that I know a lot about the struggles, but from my perspective, it didn't feel like it pushed a movement forward that is in such a vulnerable time right now.
Well, firstly, a lot of my opinions changed when I found out recently that the director did not do any research about the trans experience or Mexico and the cartel issue that's happening. I feel like you got to do the work if you feel qualified to tell a story like this. So it was a little bit of a red flag for me. But I think that this story and any LGBTQ story, I think people will always have I don't think there's any way to do it right. And I do see the complaints that people are having. But I feel like this was such a unique story to tell about a trans person that was not what I've seen before. Like, it's not like somebody's bullied in high school or blah, blah, blah. They're married to a woman and then they in suburbia and they like your average Jill or Jan or whoever. Even though the whole movie was about her being trans, I didn't really think about it. I was just thinking about this woman trying to be back in touch with her family. And she just happened to be trans, even though like the whole plot of the movie was that she transitions. But I did think it did a good job of showing the struggles of what somebody who may be transitioning may feel, and very dramatized. Like, obviously, not everybody is going to be a cartel lord in transitions, but they'll have to deal with maybe being shunned by their family or being removed from them or not seeing them, and people not trying to reconnect with their family after this. And even though this was a very dramatic way of showing that, and connecting with your kids after transitioning, whether they know who you are or don't, like in this movie, must be so difficult. But again, I don't know. I'm not in the community.
I think that Carla Sofia choosing to be in this movie is in itself a trans person like resonating or identifying with a body of work in a script. And I think that saying that like the trans community doesn't like this body of work or is critical of it, I think takes away from her lived experience and her time. And so I feel like it's really hard for me to be like, this didn't represent trans people well, when a trans person who was in it, again, resonated with and loved the work and is so vocal about supporting it. It's been interesting to me, especially, again, we're not a part of this community, but it was so educational for me to think about those scenes through a different perspective. And I didn't feel like they humanized her in a way that felt like important or like integral to the plot of this movie. And I think that's where the dangerous part for me falls, where we're emphasizing something that is inherently political, but we're not making her a human. Like, I feel like I didn't see enough of this character. And I kind of thought that overall about the movie, that there was very little character development. I didn't really care about any of them. I think that they tried to show the duality of people, especially with like Zoe Saldona's character and with Emilia Pérez, how like good people do bad things, bad people do good things, all of that. But it really, I didn't feel connected to them, especially at the end. Did you feel like it was meaningful?
I don't know what the director's point was in making the movie, but I don't think every movie, to be a good movie, has to be you're going to walk away learning so much and it's going to push the needle forward. And I don't think I walked out of this learning anything else about the trans experience or learning anything else about what it's like to live in Mexico with cartels and horrible families being torn apart from kidnappings. I don't know if it was like the point to educate people about an issue. I think it was just the backdrop to tell these people's story. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think people were really looking for like, oh, like people are going to walk into this movie and think trans people are this. Like, no, they're not. If they don't support trans people, they're not watching this movie. The people who are watching this movie are people who are left leaning. It's not the movie that you're going to like turn on just like, oh, look, let's go watch. Like, no, if you're watching this movie, you already know about these issues and you already have your opinions about them. You're not going to learn anything.
And I am so with you that like movies don't need to be so, this is my agenda and this is the message and it has to be politically correct. Because like at the end of the day, I feel the same way about like Indian representation. At the end, I don't want them playing like convenience workers or doctors or any other stereotypes. Let them just be people and let it not be this big statement about how we can be different and how we're not X, Y, and Z. Like just let them be people in movies and be characters. This is just a movie about a woman. Like at the end of the day, it can just be a movie about a woman.
Well, all that being said, did you think that this film, Emilia Pérez, was deserving of its Golden Globes wins and the praise that it received from that Academy?
I feel strongly about some of them. So they won 4. Best musical comedy, absolutely not. I don't think it deserved this award at all. I think it was a very creative and innovative and original movie, but I think content-wise or art-wise, I just did not think it was compelling. And I think other movies in this category probably deserve that a bit more. Best original song, I feel even more strongly about because I think that was a bad song. Zoe's song, El Mal, was the song that won. And I think she is an incredible dancer. The choreography was insane. The visuals were insane. And those people on that crew, and she should have won. And I think she did for it. But the song itself was such a bust to me. The other 2 awards, Best Non-English Film, I haven't seen a lot of the other categories, so that might have been the best. But again, it's that kind of struggle between whether the movie was the right pick or not. And then Best Actress, I think Zoe did a wonderful job, so I do think that was well-deserved. But that's my recap. Yeah,
I think Best Supporting Actress, Zoe Saldana, was out of the ones that I've seen the better one. So I think that was good for her. And non-English film, like you, I haven't seen any of them, but this was good. Best musical or comedy? No. The only one I haven't seen were A Real Pain and Anora that were nominated. I really enjoyed Wicked better as just a movie, as a production. Not even like comparing that they're both musicals, but just Wicked was just, I think, just a better movie overall and easier for more people to enjoy, which I also think should have some weight in these. It shouldn't just be for a certain crust of people who can like, well, that was very intelligent. Like, no, Wicked was a good movie for like most people. Like you could enjoy that. And Challengers too. I really like Challengers. we'll see what happens when the Oscar nominations come out and whether this wins anything there. But overall, I think this was a good movie. I think the criticism was warranted and valid, and I learned a lot more about trans experience and Mexican cartel culture from the critics than I did from the movie. But so in the end, you learn. But whether you learn from the movie or not, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it's the thing.
It's always great to be here, Aidan. Thank you again for letting me be your co-host today. Share your thoughts with us at Banterly at immigrantlypod.com and engage with us on your socials at Immigrantly Media on Instagram and at Immigrantly Podcast on TikTok.
Banterly is produced by Shay Yu, written by us, the co-hosts Maya Shetty and Aidan Taylor.
The executive producer and editorial review is done by Sadia Khan.
Our sound designer and editor is Lou Raskin, and the Banterly theme music is by Simon Hutchinson, with additional music by Epidemic Sound.
See y'all next week.